Rolling.
Here we are.
Welcome back.
Nice to see you looking healthy and well.
Oh my gosh, it's so good to be back. I've got my voice back. I'm still a little bit tired, actually. 2 full weeks nearly of being totally written off, but so good to be back.
And you look very, very good for those that are watching. We've got the double denim 70s looking situation here, but I'm here for it. I actually am going to go and buy that jacket, I think.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm flattered.
Now, as always, like every episode, we are going to begin by taking a mindful breath. And I do just want to apologise for our last 2 episodes. I feel like I kind of want to preface it because now that we've listened to them back, I'm like, wow, we really breathed down heavy into that microphone. So lesson learnt. So yeah, you don't need to hear that again this time. We will turn our faces to breathe out this time. But together, let's breathe to begin wherever you are. Just want you to just slow down for a sec. Connect to a breath that's natural for you. And then together, we're going to take an inhale through the nose. And if you can, close your eyes as you lengthen the exhale on the way out. Nice.
Okay. Before we start this episode, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're recording today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, the same land in which I've always had the privilege of calling home. I extend my deepest respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So, how are we?
We are good. I think much better than we were the last time we sat here. We're both, like you said, tired, but I feel like everyone's tired at the moment. It's sort of that point in the year, isn't it? But feeling very tired, but very extremely grateful and proud and, yeah, just feeling really good. Way better in terms of energy.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we're both kind of coming down from the launch event. So for those who don't know, we actually hosted an event for the launch of Rushing Slowly, which was on the weekend just been. And it was so magical. But of course, anyone who has hosted an event or been a part of launching or running an event knows how tiring it can be. And of course, we were both recording episodes and preparing for the launch simultaneously. So it's a bit of a sigh of relief now that the actual event is done and dusted, but wow, so much gratitude and so many big feelings off the back of that. It's, yeah, just been so nice to have that feedback in real time. We had 40 people here to celebrate with us for a movement, mindfulness, breathwork, journaling session, and then some time to connect over some acai bowls from Blitz Bar and some coffees. And yeah, it was so nice to have the sort of in-person connection and the real-time feedback, but also all of your feedback from our first couple of episodes that are live. So yeah, it's been a week.
It's been so special, and we will talk a little bit more about the launch event as we progress through this episode today, because we really wanted to give a little bit more insight into actually the journey of beginning Rushing Slowly. I know we've talked about Zoe and I's connection and how we developed a relationship and realised that we have very similar interests and values, and that was a big part of why we came together to do this. But we thought it was a really nice conversation to actually really dive into the actual building this business or building this podcast and the journey that came with that. So we'll definitely unpack the event in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, the trials and tribulations of starting a business, which some of you will understand, some of you will or might just be curious about. But what you see on the internet and social media and through little snippets is often just the tiniest slice of the reality of things. So we really want to let you guys kind of like pull back the curtain a little bit and let you into the back end of things, because it's important. Again, really leaning into the great paradox of us having another project on our plate, which makes us so busy, rushed and stressed when we're launching a podcast that is all about slowing down. So that's what you have to look forward to today.
But Zoe, I wanted to start by asking you just about the event. And I think a big part of what we both really value and a practice that we lean into a lot is reflection. So I want to get you to reflect and ask you about the event and what was the feeling that you took away from it, and what is something that you will never forget about that morning?
Well, the feeling, I think, was connection. Like, I just felt so connected. And the part that I won't forget, I mean, there are so many different things, but I remember right at the beginning when we sort of started the formalities, when you and I stood up in front of the group, everyone settled on their yoga mat, ready for their kind of movement and breathwork session. But we took some time just to actually explain what rushing slowly is, what it means to us, and why we decided to create a podcast on this theme. And for me, it was just the look on people's faces. Like, I just have this vivid image of one of my really, really good friends, Steph, just kind of looking at me with these eyes that were like, I don't want to miss a single thing you're saying here, because I could tell there was so much resonance. And that felt really true for the whole room. It was like everyone was so present. And I think my read on that is because this idea of rushing and wanting to figure out how to rush slowly feels so relevant in people's lives. And it would just allow me to feel so connected, because this thing that I deeply struggle with, I felt the way that other people are also struggling with it too. I'll hold on to this feeling of connection for a really long time, I think. And I know that it will keep evolving as we keep releasing episodes and keep growing and building our community. And for our listeners, we're so stoked to have you here to be a part of this.
And, you talk about community. I think that is, it's one of our core values as a brand or as a business or podcast, or what are we? I don't even know what to call us at this, but I haven't quite processed
right
it
now.
All
we're
yet.
Just a really expensive hobby.
Yeah, yes, exactly. But community forms a humongous part of who we are. It is a core value of ours that we've outlined very clearly, and I look forward to bringing people together like that so much more, because it was just so special. Like I wish that I could bottle that feeling that I had that morning and just keep it forever. If I'm ever feeling down, just pour a little bit of that on myself, because it was just so special. But for me, the feeling that I took away from the event was pride. I've just felt so proud of us for working towards this thing for so long, and just knowing the journey that it has taken to get to this point, and the patience required and the extra workload that it's added, and the people that we had there, and the people that are involved behind the scenes. Shout out to Amy and Kane from ANNOTATE, and just feel so proud of all of us as a team for working together to create this, because to have brought people together that way and knowing the impact that it had on them, it was just so special. And if you were to ask me, same as what I asked you, what will I not forget about that morning? It is just how much I realized people needed it. And it's always the way, and I think it's always particularly after a breathwork practice in particular. Like, I just remember being on my mat and I was playing the singing bowls, and I was just like watching you walk the room and just watching everyone breathe. Like, everyone was in sync with their breath and they were so immersed in it. You led it so beautifully. And then once the breathwork component ended, we transitioned straight into this guided journal meditation sort of session, and just watching everyone writing aggressively almost in their journals, because obviously so much had come up for them. And I, journaling is a practice that I just am it's just so part of me, my existence. I talk about it a lot. So to see everyone really embracing journaling as a practice and knowing that they were utilizing their paper as a means to release and let go of whatever had come up for them, I just was so in awe of that, and it made me feel so proud. And that's what this is all about. I think our drive really stems from wanting to leave a positive mark on people and help people feel a bit more connected to themselves. And I really feel like that happened at the event. And so I will never forget that. And actually afterwards, it was maybe about half an hour afterwards, I'm not going to name names, but a couple of the guests whom I actually hadn't ever met before, I think you might be connected with them, we were kind of all chatting, and one of the women was still really emotional, but in a beautiful way. Like, she had tears in her eyes and she was just so appreciative and just saying thank you to us and just expressing how much she needed that moment. And I just, that meant the most to me, because it was like, wow, she got so much out of it to the point that it's moved her to tears, and she's still emotional about it half an hour later. Like, it just meant the world to know that was the impact that these practices that we've been able to share with people have had.
Yeah. God, I couldn't agree more. My sister-in-law was telling me afterwards, she was like, God, I wrote 2 pages in my journal, like never journaled in her life. But like, yeah, it was felt like she had things to say. And yeah, it's so much pride and so much appreciation. I've received so many beautiful messages and DMs, which I know that you have as well, not just off the back of the launch, but actually off the back of the podcast itself. So excited to learn more about it all. These sentiments are in such constant rotation / discourse within oneself and our circles. It's also so refreshing to break the fourth wall of being health and wellness practitioners and not having it all together, because bloody hell, we're all human experiencing it all.
Oh, and I love that.
That message was so on point.
Because exactly that. It's so, I often, we use the word paradox. I feel like that word is so relative to our podcast, but I feel that all the time, because I'm like, how am I a breathwork facilitator yet I don't have my own breathwork practice at the moment? How am I a personal trainer, but my outlet sometimes is to just want to go out and just like drink wine with my friends to let my hair down. Like, it's so true. Like, yes, we exist in this well-being space, but we're also human, and we have this other side to us as well.
And something also that struck me as really great in terms of feedback from the podcast itself was how many messages I've had from male listeners, which, not that it necessarily surprised me, but it was such a reminder that actually we are all struggling with this. And yeah, I just thought that was a kind of beautiful reminder, again, in service of really not feeling alone, in that, yes, this feels really true for our experience, but it feels true for everyone.
Yeah, every human, no matter what gender, we're all on our own course, and that course is tumultuous at times. It's up, down, it's around and around, and we're all navigating it in the best possible way that we can. And I think that's the perfect segue actually into the way that we like to begin all of our episodes, by prompting the question, what keeps you rushing? And this week we thought, because one of our branding touch points at our event was, we had these little almost postcard type little prompts that people had the opportunity to write on and stick on the wall. And on one side it said, what keeps you rushing? And then on the other side, what helps to slow you down? So we thought, instead of sharing ours this week, we would share some of the answers that our guests wrote and left for us on the wall, because there are some really special ones in there. So, Zoe, what is keeping some of our guests rushing at the moment?
Yeah, and again, this is so helpful, because I think we often believe that whatever we're struggling with, we're really alone in that. And so that's why we wanted to share these. Obviously, we're not naming names here. These are all totally anonymous. So what's keeping you rushing? The way that my business is growing. Another one was running my own business and not knowing when to rest. Something that we've spoken a lot about. Another one was the fear of not doing enough.
Oof, that word fear again, another topic we've talked a lot about.
I love this one. Compensating for all of the things that I don't have yet, in brackets, relationship, kids, house. And that feels really relevant to this idea of timelines.
And that was what we discussed in the age versus levels conversation, which you can go back and listen to at any point. But yeah, that is so relative.
And then this one is the last one that we'll share for today, which is my personal favourite. So as Megzy said, the card was two-sided. One is what keeps you rushing and the other one was what helps you to slow down. And this person wrote in response to what keeps you rushing, 2 small children. But then on the other side, what's helping you to slow down, 2 small children. And I loved that, right? The ultimate paradox. So that is what is keeping some of you guys out there rushing, and I'm sure that anyone listening, whether you're at the event or not, can relate to at least one of those things. So I think let's kind of move a little closer to what we're going to talk about today. As we said, like really wanting to share the reality of bringing this business, podcast, expensive hobby, whatever you want to call it, to life. And yeah, the giant paradox of us getting this off the ground. One of my funniest memories was that during the process of us setting the date of our launch, which was September the 7th, and we were also recording our first couple of episodes. I think it must have been the same week. And Megzy called me and she was like, hey, and we were both frantically stressed. She was like, hey, I'm just wondering, like, do you reckon we should delay our launch? Do you think that we should just push it back? Like, I'm noticing how stressed we both are. Like, I just really feel like this is going against the whole theme of the podcast, which is like trusting and taking it slow, and keeping in mind that it had been over a year at this point. And I said back point blank, Megzy, we have been going too slow. At this point, it is time for us to rush. And she was like, fuck. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair. All right. We're on. Okay. Just needed to check. Hung up the phone. Carry on. So let's talk about from the beginning. So Megzy and I had this idea, as I said, it would have been, over a year ago now. And Megzy had this friend of hers called Amy. And she said, I know this girl, Amy, she's awesome. I feel like we should just sit down and chat to her about podcasting and, just get her read on what we should do and the best first steps. And so we had a meeting with Amy and we sat down and we told her about our concept and our idea. And really unexpectedly, actually, Amy was like, whoa, this is me. Like, you guys are talking about me. This is so relevant. And we were just in there to get advice. But Ames was actually like, I'd love to work with you on this, which we were a bit like, wow, okay. I mean, yeah, that would be amazing. This is happening perhaps a little sooner than we thought. But then, of course, what was the timing? I think it was during Gather Round.
I think it was during Gather Round, and Amy, so her business is called ANNOTATE lab and agency. So lab is where we record out of an ANNOTATE agency, and they do the most. Like, they do it all. I mean,
in the best way.
Yeah, in the best possible way. Like, I watch her Instagram stories sometimes and she'll be here at like 10 o'clock at night on a ladder painting the ceiling, and then the next morning she's recording Dan Does Footy, because they obviously have some great other podcasts that they record out of here, and I don't know if anyone's a footy head out there, but Dan Does Footy is one of their big podcasts that come out of here that's absolutely flying.
It's amazing.
And yeah, so she's just such a busy human, to the point that we used her as our avatar almost. We were like, who is our target market? Oh,
yeah, like classic when you start a business, right? You want to get really, really clear on like, who is our ideal listener? Who is our avatar that we can, imagine that we're speaking to every time we talk? And we were like, wow, it's Amy. I don't know if she was so willing in that allocation of her role, but
I remember when we put the brand deck together though to present to her, and we had actually like written her, like her age, her role. Like, she's like And when we read it to her, she was like, that sounds like me. We were like,
it is you.
yeah.
But because we had this conversation around like a really, I think it was Gather Round, was really busy for them. And so Ames just didn't quite have the capacity to move at the pace that Megzy and I were so enthusiastically ready to move at. And so we thought, okay, maybe we just need to kind of pause on this and go and explore some other options. So I don't know how many places we would have spoken to in terms of like podcast production. Also, another part is that we had decided pretty early on that we wanted to work with someone who could work from beginning to end, because we're busy and we don't have time to navigate the nitty gritty of podcast editing and, producing and stuff. So I reckon we would have spoken to maybe 6 or 7 different podcast agencies, production agencies.
Least. We pretty much, I think, spoke to all of the main ones in Melbourne.
Yeah, which was a really good learning experience.
Yeah.
And it could be a little frustrating at times because we'd kind of be keen on something and then it would not work out, and it just kind of felt like it was going around in circles a little bit.
And mind you, all of that takes a lot of time as well. Like you lock in a meeting and then you're relying on everyone's availability, so that, you might have a meeting with one place and that's, 1 week, and then you're like, then you debrief on it and you're like, I don't think that's right. Then you move on to the next. So it's a real process. And when we've spoken to so many, that ended up taking months.
Months and months. And even though it felt like wasted time, we were able to reflect in hindsight and recognize, no, this is what it takes actually when you really care about something and you want to do it properly and you want to do it well. You have to be willing to put in the work to do the research, knowing that a lot of the research is going to come back as that's not quite right for us. But yeah, trying to navigate diary scheduling when you're trying to get together a bit of a team can be so hard. Yeah, and we lost weeks and weeks in that process, which was so challenging. By the time we had gone away and done all of that research, we just kept saying, we just want to work with Amy. Like, we just want to work with ANNOTATE, like the kind of feminine energy that she brings. And then by the time we'd come full circle and we reached back out, we were like, hey, we know that you are so flat out, but we just want to dip our toe in one more time. And the response was, oh yeah, we've totally got space now. Let's go. And then all of a sudden we were on. And now here we are sitting in the lab recording with the legend Amy, who is listening to this whole conversation, probably pink in the face, but we can't see her because her face is hidden behind the screen.
And it's so funny because
we love you.
We do. We appreciate you. And, going back to that feminine touch, it really does, it does really mean a lot to us in this conversation, and knowing how much there is so much relatability between us, and now we've all got this great little thing going, and we really feel like a team, and it's so special, and can't wait to see where it all goes. But what I think I've reflected on upon that whole journey is what we touched on towards the end of our last episode, where you mentioned specifically about how it should be so much more about the journey and focusing on that versus the outcome. And there were points throughout that whole process of leading up to this point that we were so frustrated because we, even with our branding and stuff, like we had
branding,
the initial branding was also a major process. It took us a long time to get that right, and you go down this path and you spend a lot of time working with people, and then it doesn't quite work out and it feels like wasted time, which it isn't. But in that moment you're like, oh, for fuck's sake, like this, what are we doing? Like, this is adding so much extra time to our, time commitment, and it's really doesn't feel like it's going anywhere, and we don't really know what the right step is next, and we're just fumbling a little bit. And there were so many times we were just like, oh, we just want to be there already. Like, this is annoying. But upon reflection, and we pulled ourselves up a couple of times, we were like, no, Zoe, and we said it to each other. I remember saying to you, but don't worry, because we are going to get there. This is what it's all about. We're going to look back on all of this and I've learnt so fucking much that I can't, it's wild what I've learnt over the last year planning this with you. But yes, now that we can reflect and look back and go, oh, yeah, wow, we are here. And that was what it was all about. Of course, the outcome is important because that's what you're working towards. But when you're so fixated on getting to the end and the outcome, you don't appreciate what's happening in the moment. And what was happening in the moment for me personally, but for both of us, was that we were growing and we were learning and we were realizing how to navigate being impatient and frustrated and working as a team and all of this stuff. And I'm so grateful for the journey because it's made this whole thing so much more worthwhile.
Yeah, there were a couple of times there where we would be on these Zoom calls, even if it was just with each other, and I would just feel exhausted by even talking about it. I'm like, I just feel like we've spoken about this so many times. Like, I want to pull out now. Like, at this point, I'm like, this is silly because this is time that we're not getting paid for, obviously, and it's making me feel so stressed. And like, I think maybe this is just not going to happen. But then we would just have these moments of reminding each other, like, hang on. How beautiful is it to, be collaborating, which I think we spoke about in another episode, like, as people who usually work for themselves, not so much in a big team, like, to be able to share this with each other was so nice. But also, yeah, just being able to actually focus, like, yes, the destination's super, super important, but that's not everything. And I think that anyone who has started a business before or is thinking about starting a business, I mean, especially for those who are thinking about going out on their own, as we spoke about a lot in hustle culture, it's like we can really put on a pedestal this idea of working for ourselves and coming up with our own thing and being a little entrepreneurial or whatever you want to call it. But actually, it's really, really hard. And you often have to meet yourself in some pretty grim emotions, like frustration and disappointment and feeling like, oh, maybe this isn't it and maybe we've made the wrong choice, and like that can be really uncomfortable. But what comes out on the other side of being able to trudge your way through, what is it, like no mud, no lotus. And
you always have great sayings. You always have great, like,
it's the yoga teacher in me.
No mud, no lotus. I've literally never heard that before, but it makes perfect sense.
Again, it's the yoga teacher in me. I got so many more.
Can I ask you a question before we continue? I want to know, just off the back of you explaining all of that, what's the biggest lesson you would say you've learnt over the course of creating Rushing Slowly?
That comes to mind straight away, that it is so worth investing in good people who know what they're doing. Because so many of my other businesses, I don't have that many businesses. I've got my therapy practice and my yoga business. I have done that all on my own, pretty much, right? Of course, I've had help with branding and bits and pieces here and there, and I have mentorship and supervision and stuff. But what we've done with Rushing Slowly in making the financial investment, firstly, which we're going to talk a little bit about as well, like the reality of what this means for our bank accounts, as I said, expensive hobby. But actually starting to feel how much that's paying off for us, because the quality in which we have decided to commit for this project is like, you can feel it. And I hope that other people out there can feel it, because there's something about just knowing that you have really skilled people on your team to help what is just an idea in our mind become a reality. And so, that's my biggest takeaway, that even though it feels scary to make a big investment, that on the other side of that, so worth every moment of stress and every penny, in my opinion.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think...
What's yours?
There are so many lessons from this process. I think the biggest thing is backing yourself in, knowing that you are capable of doing hard things.
Yeah.
And sometimes my inner critic gets in the way, and sometimes I have a tendency to avoid hard things because my self-doubt gets loud. But trusting that I am powerful, smart enough, driven enough, hardworking enough to do this. And so many times my voice, my inner dialogue was trying to sway me otherwise, trying to, pull me down, which is, again, something I know that we all grapple with. Like, I really do battle with limiting beliefs a lot, more so than I probably allude to. And yeah, I think that's why I felt so proud. I think that's why pride is the emotion that really shines for me, because to be able to get to this point and far out, we've got a long road ahead. Like, this is just the beginning and we're going to, this is going to evolve and grow so much, and I'm excited for that, and I'm excited for that challenge. But yeah, it was just like, you know what? If you really believe in yourself, you can do this. And I think so often, and I know even just as an example, a friend of mine who attended our event, we've had a couple of conversations since, and it really inspired her. You know, she's in a really successful job, and she loves what she does, but she wants to work in an area that feels a little bit more passion driven and a little bit more aligned. But there is this element of safety with her job. But what our event has enabled her to do is go, you know what? I can do both. I can do this. I'm powerful enough. I'm passionate enough. And so it's prompted her to go and start a mindset coaching course. And I just love that so much, because it's like, yes, just believe in yourself, back yourself in, and take small steps towards the thing that you want to achieve, and you can do whatever you put your mind to.
Yeah, that's so refreshing to hear that. But I'm also so glad that you speak openly about, doubting yourself, because even from my perspective, I don't feel that in you so often, like I know that we all experience that in a general way, but it's kind of reassuring, because obviously I am constantly doubting myself also. And I'm like, okay, I can exhale. We're both completely unsure of ourselves, but yet it just feels so nice to have your support. That's what kind of helps me to be like, okay, if Megzy's all good, I'm all good. And are we faking it until we make it? Who knows? But yeah, I think it's just really nice to hear your ability to feel proud of yourself and to take that learning of just back yourself, because everyone listening also doubts themselves. There's no doubt in my mind. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. It feels really important.
Yeah. And I think that it's, like you said, it's relative to all, and it's a journey that we are all working towards. I don't think it ever stops. We're always going to be faced with noisy minds at times.
I don't have a noisy mind. What are you talking about?
That's why breathing is so good.
Yeah. How good's breathing? So another thing that we were going to talk about more specifically is actually the event itself, which I sort of spoke already around my lesson that I kind of took away, investing in good people who know what they're doing. And so much of our launch event itself, Megzy and I really practiced just relinquishing control, mostly because of our capacity. We had other things that we needed to focus on, and we really just wanted to trust that the team here at ANNOTATE and Alice from Studio A, who we'll give a proper shout out to in a moment, really knew what they were doing. And yeah, there was definitely moments in there where we were a bit like, oh, what's happening? We're pouring.
Well, because it kind of snowballed, didn't it?
Totally.
The launch thing. And to be fair, like what you were saying, the relinquishing of control, I have to admit, I could not see the vision at all in the same way that Amy could. I was like, even for those of you who follow us on socials at our Rushing Slowly handle, or on my socials, or
definitely
Zoe's,
go and have a look at what we're talking about, because I think that's going to give context. Jump onto the Rushing Slowly Instagram and you will see the context of our launch event. It was incredible.
It was incredible. But even so, I want to talk about the video first.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. Which again, you can find that on our socials, our launch video.
Our launch video. I was like, okay, we're going to do this promo video, which I obviously understand. It's like social media promotion to, promote your brand.
Yeah, no point launching a podcast if no one is going to listen, was the attitude that we took. So let's back ourselves, put some money into some marketing.
Yeah, but what I was thinking it was going to be was just like me and Zoe, doing a little really raw video, raw dog reel or something. And Amy was just had this vision, and we created this full marketing campaign to launch our page and to build hype leading into the launch event. And I just don't, it made me realize, wow, I actually don't have a marketing brain at all. And it was just really trusting the vision that Amy had, particularly because she's just this creative little genius. And I was like, okay, this, getting quotes for things. And I'm like, oh, I don't really know where this is going. Like, what are we doing? Like, what is happening?
Seems like a lot of money for something that we don't understand, but okay.
I don't get it. But trust, surrender, trust, surrender. That is what I kept reminding myself. And fucking hell, it has paid off to be able to now go, like that launch video, it makes perfect sense. Like now that we're on the flip side to it, I'm like, oh, I get that now. And then leading into the launch, like, I didn't think anyone was going to come. Like I was like, we're putting on this massive event and actually no one is going to come except maybe my friends like Portia, Dash, like our best mates. They'll be there, but like no one.
Well, and like we kept getting asked by everyone who's working on the project, like, hey guys, what's the budget? And we're like, we don't really know. Like just not that much, but like don't make the event shit. So whatever that middle space is. And then of course we're like pouring money into this thing that we know is going to be incredible. We can't quite see what that actually means
I didn't even
yet.
know that at this point. I was like, what is happening here? And I was a bit, because we've both been so busy. You were away, I was away.
Yeah.
I'm like dipping in a little bit to the organising chat. We've got group chats going on and there's flowers, conversation about flowers and coffee carts and I'm just like, oh my God, what is happening? No one's coming to this event. Like, why are we doing this?
Yeah, and the biggest stress actually ended up being like monitoring the guest list and trying to make sure that we actually could fill the 40 mats that we had, like knowing it's a Saturday morning, some people have kids and it's tricky and we're going to have people pulling out. So do you over invite with the expectation that people won't come? But then what if everyone comes and there's not enough mats? And like, fuck, the noisiness of that was like, what are we doing?
And then the week of leading up to the event when we start recording, which, if you've listened to our last 2 episodes, you could hear it in our voices. Like we weren't well, especially Zoe. She was so sick. So we've got this massive launch event. We're recording podcasts and we can barely talk. We sound like husky boys. And we've got this massive event that's happening on Saturday that we've got to show up and have all of our energy for. And at this point, I still can't see the vision. I'm like, what are we doing?
And then someone's like, hey, can I have like a couple $100 to buy some moss? And I'm like, I guess so. Sure. I mean, at this point, what even is money?
Oh, but can I just talk about the moss for a second?
Oh, yeah, true.
Our moss, if you're watching, if you can see this on YouTube, our set includes this incredible moss and it's growing. I love it. From the last 2 episodes, our moss is really starting to seep out. Now we're going to have a full garden in here soon.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Anyway, so yeah, we got sick and that was really hard because there was so much to do and we won't go into it again because we've already harped on about how annoying it is to get sick. But anyway, so the night before we had a really late bump in. We were, I think, here until like nearly 10 p.m, although I left a little bit earlier because I wanted to get a good night's sleep. But
let me tell you, we were here. Yes, we were here till late. We were having some pizzas. We had some pizza and we were having some wines. And it's like any events, like the night before, you're looking around and it's all hands on deck. There's shit everywhere, boxes, rubbish, moss. We were going to put this like installment in the roof and Amy's like got this fishing wire stuff and there's like tassels and there's this mess everywhere and it's 10 o'clock at night. We're meeting here at 6:30 in the morning and I'm like, oh my God, what have we done?
How? Oh my God, yeah. But it's those moments. It was those moments of like chaos and messiness, but like being in it together with the team was just so special. Like just eating pizza, like sick and just messy and dirty and just trusting it's all going to be fine. And it was so fine. But I think it's really important. We've mentioned the kind of financial component and that, but really we were so lucky because we had so much support from people who were willing to give us their time free of charge. And really we were able to put on an amazing event for actually like yeah. And so we want to actually give shout outs to all of the people who supported us, who helped us bring to life what was such a premium experience for our guests. So firstly, I think it's so important. I mean, Amy from ANNOTATE Agency and ANNOTATE Lab, where we're sitting now, Amy and Kane, they're just such a powerhouse, and we're so grateful for everything that they do for us continually. We also wanted to give a shout out to Alice from Studio A, who really brought the event to life. And without her, we probably would have been sitting on the floor with a few pieces of moss and a yoga mat, and that's about it. But she did an incredible job. She has such a talent and an eye for details and for events and people. So definitely check out Alice from Studio A if you need any kind of event production or talent management or lots of things. She's incredibly talented. And then also Minka. I want to give a really personal shout out to Minka. Minka is one of my best friends, actually. We've known each other since year 7, I reckon. We went to high school together, and Minka has just started her floristry business. It's called Minka Studio, and she was the one who brought all of our greenery to life. And again, go and check it out on socials, because it was incredible what she was able to do, and she donated her time free of charge. So we are so grateful for you, Minx. We love you so much.
You're an absolute powerhouse, talented, creative genius. And if I ever get married one day, I know exactly who I'm calling for all of my florals, and Alice certainly will be the event organizer for sure for that. But also we had a lot of brands come on board to support us and were so generous. And so I think it's important that we give them a little shout out as well. And I want to start by saying a massive thank you to Nike. We wouldn't even know each other if it wasn't for Nike. And to be a part of the Nike network for me, and I know for us, is the biggest pinch me that I've ever had. You know, it's such an honor to be a part of that team, and the support that they give to us is I never have enough words to express the gratitude.
Well, importantly, the Nike Well Collective and everything that Nike is doing inside of the space of holistic fitness and is so in alignment with what we're talking about as it relates to rushing slowly. So the value alignment between Nike Well Collective and ourselves is just so on point, and we're so grateful to have their ongoing support.
And for those of you that don't know the Nike Well Collective, again, get on socials and follow, because it's so much more than fitness. It's like the 5 pillars are movement, mindfulness, rest, nutrition, and connection. And that's exactly who we are, and that's exactly why you said we're so in alignment. So they were amazing. They supported us with product and tote bags and journals, all of the journals that our guests were ferociously writing in, they got to take home with them. And they also helped us out with the mats and the bolsters and just so much. So we love you, Nike fam. Thank you so much. As well as Blitz Bar and 132 Chapel, which, by the way, one of my favourite cafes in Melbourne on Chapel Street. The acai bowls that Blitz Bar provided were probably the best I've ever had.
It was so good. It was unbelievable.
So good. So massive thank you to them for being our food and bev providers.
Yeah. And then the Beauty Chef so generously contributed their collagen products to our gift bags, which that is so generous.
And so delicious.
And so good.
How good's collagen?
Unbelievable. And then Spray Oz, again, really generously contributed to our goodie bags. And for anyone who doesn't know, Spray Oz is a self-tanning product.
And they also have tan studios, actually.
Yes, of course.
I occasionally go and get a little spray from the Spray Oz in Brighton.
Yeah. And we were laughing so much because obviously we were taking some content after the event, and we were just spritzing our faces with the face spray, going willy-nilly, just taking this content. There was like beautiful lighting and we were spraying the mist, and then of course absolutely forgetting the fact that we're spraying ourselves with tanning product.
Yeah. And I messaged the girls in the morning. I was like, oh, by the way, Spray Oz is legit. Like, their tanning product works. I had the brownest face, more so than my whole body. I looked very out of proportion. So
I probably went a little overboard with the spritzing. But so grateful for their support. And then the skin bar as well.
Which, by the way, we need to book in and go and have our session. My skin is feeling a little bit in need of TLC. So yes, thank you to the Skin Bar for your contribution. We are so, so grateful and can't wait to come in and check out your beautiful space.
Yeah, and they have generously given us a discount code actually, which is Rushing Slowly 20. So if anyone wants to go in and treat themselves to a treatment from the Skin Bar, enjoy.
Treat yourself. And thank you to Taryn from Touch Body Mind, who's also a beautiful friend. We met actually on one of your retreats.
Yeah, so I know Taryn through the yoga industry from many years ago, and she's an incredible body worker. So definitely check her out. And then Drink Better Days.
Yum. Cactus water.
Delicious.
Which we love. So massive thank you to Drink Better Days. I had never drank cactus water before and it was delicious.
Yeah, it's delicious. And then finally, we wanted to give a shout out to our friends from Flatpack who captured all of the content for us on the day. So we have done a lot of work with Flatpack through the Nike crew, and they really generously helped us out. And as you'll be able to see through the content on socials, their stuff is absolutely amazing. So thanks to the team from Flatpack. Check them out if you ever need any photography or videography. They have an amazing little space in Collingwood.
So it certainly does take an army of troops to make things happen, and we had the best team on board. And although I'm so grateful to have had an amazing event, I'm excited to now not have to think about that for the next little while, but I certainly know who we will be calling and using for future events, because there will be plenty more just like that throughout the course of this Rushing Slowly ride.
So to close up, let's reference back the cards that some of the guests were interacting with on event day and read out some of the things that are helping our event guests to slow down.
I love these so much. So one of the first ones here, what is helping you to slow down? Prioritizing time for the people that I love, which, as we've spoken about before, you know, when you're so busy and just rushing so much, that's sometimes one of the first things that falls by the wayside. So I love that. Being grounded and reminding myself to be proud of me.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so important. Again, we sometimes forget to take time to just acknowledge how awesome we are as human beings and all the things that we do achieve. So I love that one. This is a great one. What's helping you to slow down? Leaving my phone off for the first 2 hours of my day. Very good tool. Listening to music, again, which is another one that I absolutely love. I often say that if there was one thing in the world that I couldn't live without, it would be music for sure.
Amen.
Being conscious and being in the moment, reminding myself that this is all we have. Oof. And then I like this one, a nice little hobby, my passion for art. I love getting on the pottery wheel. And I think that's such a nice, it's so nice to have little hobbies. So yeah, thank you to our guests for being so vulnerable and so open and sharing those with us.
All right, so that's it, I think. I guess most importantly, just giving a shout out to all you guys who are out there listening, because actually that is the most important thing. The thing that is going to help us continue to build this community and get closer to one another really is you guys out there continuing to interact and engage with us. So yeah, please don't be afraid to share this episode and any other episode that you like on socials. Go ahead and follow us on Spotify and subscribe on wherever you get your podcasts. And yeah, we really look forward to having chats with you guys in our DMs. As I always say, slide on in. But we'll see you in the next episode.
Ciao.
Bye. The content discussed in this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If any of the topics we covered today feel overwhelming, we recommend seeking individual support. If you or someone you know is experiencing a mental health crisis, please contact Lifeline on 131114 or 13 Yarn on 139276.